By 9 in the morning, my daughter was pounding on my front door as if she wanted to crack it in half. Her voice hit the hallway like a hammer, sharp and furious, shouting my name over and over. "Mom, open this door right now. Open it." I stood in the middle of my small entryway, unable to move. 70 years old, and my own child sounded like she had come to drag me out by the throat. My heart thudded so loudly I could barely hear her next scream. "Do you think you can just do this to me? Open the door." Her words slammed through the wood. I pressed my palm against the wall to steady myself. For a moment, I wondered if the neighbors had stepped outside. If anyone else on our quiet street in Tacoma was hearing this, it did not matter. My daughter, Corinne, had never cared about who heard her anger. I took a breath, sharp and thin, and then everything stopped. The hallway blurred. My mind jumped backward. The way memories sometimes force themselves into the room. 1 week earlier, the morning had been ordinary, calm, soft light through the blinds. I was slicing a pear at the kitchen counter, humming out of habit. My phone buzzed. I wiped my hands and picked it up. It was Corinne. "We're going to skip your birthday. Things are so busy." I read it twice, then a third time, as if the meaning might change if I blinked long enough. Busy. My daughter had missed other things over the year's holidays, dinners, anniversaries. But my birthday, she had never skipped that. I typed back slowly, even though the letters on the screen were shaking just a bit. No problem. 2 words that tasted like chalk. I stared at the message after it sent. My thumb hovered as if I might add something else. "Are you sure? Did I do something? Could you maybe just stop by?" But I did not write anything more. I knew better. Whenever I asked for anything, even the smallest thing, Corinne would sigh the way a teenager does when they are forced to do chores. I set the phone down and tried to breathe normally. The kitchen felt too quiet. My house felt too big. Birthdays were not about presents at my age. They were about being remembered, seen, chosen. I swallowed the ache and forced myself to keep moving. I washed the knife, wiped the counter, opened the blinds a little wider. The ordinary things kept me from sinking. Later that afternoon, my son Daniel called from his office in Seattle. He apologized for not being able to come home that weekend, but at least he sounded guilty about it. I told him, "It's all right, sweetheart." Even though my voice cracked a little, he noticed, but he didn't push. The day ended the way so many days had ended for me, quietly, politely, holding disappointment like a folded napkin in my lap. I had no idea then that Corinne's message was only the first tug on a thread that had been thinning for years. And 1 week later, she would come screaming at my door, furious enough to wake the street, and I would finally understand why everything inside me had snapped. The text sat on my phone like a tiny stone with the weight of a mountain behind it. I kept rereading it, hoping the letters might rearrange themselves into something softer. Something a daughter would actually send her mother. "We're going to skip your birthday. Things are so busy." I set the phone face down on the table, but it felt like the words stayed in the room with me. My chest felt tight, the way it does when you swallow something too quickly and it gets stuck halfway. I whispered into the empty kitchen, "It's just a birthday. Maribel, let it go." But my voice shook too much to believe myself. For most of my life, I had been the dependable one, the steady one, the quiet backbone of the Rowan family. If something broke, I fixed it. If someone cried, I listened. If anyone needed anything, they called me before thinking twice. That used to make me proud. Lately, it just made me tired. I walked to the window and looked out at Ruston Way, the waterfront stretching past the marina. Even from my condo, I could catch the faint clang of the old clock tower when the wind pushed sound inland. Tacoma had always been a working city ships. Rails, warehouses, But for me, it was home because Matthew and I built our life here. It was the last place where I still felt like part of a story, instead of the quiet end of one. My phone buzzed again. I shoved down the flicker of hope and picked it up. It was not Corinne, it was Daniel. "Hey, Mom," he said, breathing hard like he'd rushed between meetings. "I just wanted to check in. You okay?" His voice softened me instantly. "I'm fine. Sweetheart. Busy morning." He laughed. "You and your busy mornings. Are you sure you're all right?" "I'm all right," I said, a little too quickly. Daniel hesitated. "I won't make it this weekend. I'm buried at work. But I'll call again soon." "Of course," I said. "Take care of yourself." After we hung up, I stared at the blank wall for a long minute. My son at least sounded like he wished he could be here. Corinne sounded like she wished she didn't have a mother at all. To distract myself, I washed a few dishes, folded a towel, cleaned a counter that did not need cleaning. Anything to keep my mind from circling back to those words. By afternoon, I gave up pretending I was not thinking about her. I opened her profile. There she was, smiling, laughing. Sunlight on her hair like a magazine photo. The caption read, "Self-care day with my girls." Needed this so much. The photo showed her holding a smoothie, leaning on a friend's shoulder, not a single sign of busy or overwhelmed. 2 other pictures followed another cafe, another laugh, another little moment she chose to share with the world instead of her mother. A hot, sharp sting went straight through me. Not anger, not yet. Something quieter, deeper, almost like embarrassment. I whispered, "So busy, huh?" I closed the app and pressed the phone to my chest. It felt childish, that gesture. But the ache behind it was not childish at all. 70 years old. And I still reacted like the girl who waited by the window for her parents to come home. The clock tower chimed in the distance. 3 slow notes. I listened until the echo faded. Corinne had lied. She had not just been busy, she had not forgotten. She had chosen something else, someone else over me. And even though I tried to breathe through it, the crack behind my ribs widened just a little more. The kind you feel before something finally breaks. I did not know yet how much that lie would cost her, but I felt its weight settling. Steady and cold, inside my chest. I used to think grief faded the way old paper yellows slowly, quietly, almost gently. But losing Matthew taught me that memories don't soften with time. They sharpen. They cut differently. Some days they cut deeper. That morning, after seeing Corinne's cheerful pictures, I sat at the kitchen table and let my mind drift back to him. Matthew Rowan had been the kind of man who spoke little but listened fully. He held coffee mugs with both hands, hummed when he was nervous, and always rubbed the back of my wrist when something frightened me. We raised our children in a house too small for 4 people, but big enough for laughter. When he was sick near the end, he whispered, "Take care of yourself after I'm gone." And I whispered back, "I will," but I didn't. I took care of everyone else instead. Corinne changed the most after he died. At the funeral, she looked at me like I had taken something from her on purpose. She hugged me stiffly and said, "You should have told us sooner." Even though I had told her every step, she had simply chosen not to listen. For months afterward, she called less. When she did call, her voice was clipped, rushed, impatient. "Mom, I'm trying to build my career. Mom, I don't have time for emotional stuff. Mom, I can't keep driving to Tacoma every week. I never asked her to. I only ever asked her to come when she could." But with Corinne, even the smallest ask felt like a burden she was desperate to escape. Daniel visited more often. Even though he lived farther away, he swept the porch, fixed the light in the hallway, sat beside me while I paid bills. He grieved with quiet hands, the same way Matthew had. But Corinne, she drifted like a balloon someone forgot to tie down. After she married, things got stranger. Her calls changed tone. "Mom, could you help with the down payment? Mom, it's just one bill. Can you cover it this month? Mom, the car insurance jumped. I'll pay you back." She never did. And I never asked. The first time I hesitated, she snapped through the phone. "You know we're struggling. If Dad were here, he'd help. You owe us a little support." Oh, that word glued itself inside me. I sent the money anyway, 200 here, 300 there, sometimes 1,000 when her husband lost another job. I told myself I was helping her stay afloat. I told myself that mothers don't stop caring just because they're tired. But a part of me knew something wasn't right. One night, Daniel found me sorting through bank statements. "Mom," he said softly, "you can't keep doing this. She's not a child." I told him, "She's grieving." But even I didn't believe it. Because Corinne didn't call to ask how I was surviving without Matthew. She only called when something needed fixing. And the older I grew, the more I felt like the only thing she saw in me was a wallet wrapped in a mother's voice. The house stayed quiet long after I stopped thinking about the money. It wasn't the bills that hurt. It was the silence that came with them. I woke up on my birthday before the sun had fully decided what to do with the sky. For a moment, in that blurry stretch between sleep and waking, I forgot about the text. The day felt open, soft, full of the old habit of expecting something good. Then the memory clicked into place. "We're going to skip your birthday. Things are so busy." I lay there for a few seconds, staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint hum of the refrigerator down the hall. 70 years old. The first birthday without Matthew. I had been surrounded by casseroles and awkward hugs. This one felt different. This one felt like someone had slowly turned down the volume on my life and left me in the quiet. I pushed myself up and made the bed. It was a small act, but it made the room look less lonely. In the kitchen, I set a single plate on the counter, then laughed at myself under my breath. "Stop fussing, Maribel," I said. "You're cooking for one, not hosting a banquet." Still, my hands moved on their own. I seasoned a small piece of salmon, boiled a handful of potatoes, chopped green beans. It was nothing complicated. But I smoothed the edges of the plate with the same care I would have used if Daniel and Corinne were coming over with their noise and their stories. Around mid-morning, my phone buzzed on the table. My heart jumped before my mind caught up. It was Daniel. He had sent a voice message. I tapped play and held the phone close. "Hey, Mom," his voice came through, warm and a little rushed. "Happy birthday. I wish I could be there. Things are crazy here, but I'm thinking about you. I'll call you later if I can. I love you." I replayed it twice, letting each word land. Then I typed back a simple, "Thank you, sweetheart. I love you, too." I did not mention that his sister had already decided the day did not matter. I waited until noon to check my messages again. Nothing from Corinne, no call, no emoji, not even one of those lazy, pre-recorded greetings people send when they do not want to be bothered. I told myself, "She warned you. She said she was busy." I still left my phone on the table. Screen up, just in case. The afternoon moved slowly. I cleaned a drawer that did not need cleaning. I straightened a stack of magazines. I watched part of an old movie and turned it off halfway through when the mother on the screen blew out candles surrounded by 3 generations of noisy relatives. By early evening, the condo smelled faintly of baked fish and roasted potatoes. I set the table properly, plate, fork, knife, cloth napkin folded the way Matthew had liked. Old habits. Stubborn habits. I poured myself a small glass of ginger ale and sat down. The seat across from me stayed empty. I ate slowly. Not because the food needed savoring, but because rushing through it would make the silence harder to bear. Every so often, my eyes slid toward the phone on the counter. It stayed dark. When the plate was nearly empty, I pushed my chair back and went to the cupboard where I kept the candles. There was a small box of them from years of children's cakes and anniversary dinners. I took one out, a simple white stick, and placed it in the center of a plain cupcake I had bought at the grocery store deli. I set the cupcake in front of me and stared at it. The wick was untouched, a tiny, hopeful thread. My hand reached for the lighter, then stopped. The last time I had blown out candles, Corinne had been standing beside me, rolling her eyes but staying long enough to eat a slice. Daniel had taken a picture with his phone. Matthew had clapped off beat, singing louder than anyone in the room. That was the birthday when I turned 65. We had all been in the same place then, still pretending the cracks were just shadows. I looked at the dark candle and lowered my hand. "I am not singing to myself," I said softly. "Not this year." I sat there for a long time, the room dim around me, the little cupcake like a small joke I did not find funny. The phone remained quiet on the counter. Outside, a car door closed somewhere down the street. A distant dog barked and then went silent. Eventually, I picked up the cupcake, removed the candle, and took a bite. It tasted dry and too sweet. I wrapped the rest and put it back in the fridge, as if I might feel different about it later. I washed my plate, wiped the table, and turned off the kitchen light. The reflection in the dark window showed a woman whose shoulders had settled lower over the years, as if she had been carrying invisible grocery bags for too long. The body in the glass belonged to someone who looked her age. The ache behind her ribs felt older. I told myself the morning after my quiet birthday that I would not let the hurt follow me around the house. I said it out loud. The way people say things when they know they're lying to themselves. "Get up, Maribel. Do something useful." So I put on my coat and walked to the small market down the street. The clerk, a soft-spoken college boy who always tried to upsell me apples, brightened when he saw me. "Morning, Ms. Rowan," he said. "You're out early." "Needed fresh air," I replied, forcing a smile. "And flowers." He rang up a small bouquet of white tulips. I bought them because they looked gentle, not because they made anything feel better. I carried them home like a peace offering to a life that had started feeling too quiet. Inside, I trimmed the stems and placed the tulips in a glass jar. I stepped back and looked at them on the table, as if beauty might soften something inside me. It didn't. Not right away. But pretending helped me move. I dusted shelves that didn't need dusting. I wiped the counter again, even though it was clean. All the small movements of a woman trying to keep her heart from leaking into her hands. At some point, I found myself standing in front of the old wooden cabinet where the photo albums lived. I opened the door slowly, as if it might creak with memories instead of hinges. The albums were stacked by decades. I reached for the one with the faded spine 1990s. I carried it to the couch and settled in. The first page was a picture of Corinne at 7 years old, arms wrapped around a blue kite twice her size. She grinned so hard her eyes nearly disappeared. Matthew stood behind her, holding the string, laughing, and me hair windblown, hands half raised like I wanted to hold the both of them together. I touched the corner of the photo. "Where did that little girl go?" I whispered. Turning the page felt like opening a small wound. School plays, beach trips, birthday parties where Corinne would tug on my sleeve and whisper, "Promise you'll stay for cake." Back then, she couldn't imagine celebrating without me. Somewhere along the years, the string between us loosened. Somewhere along the years, she stopped needing me for anything except emergencies and money. My phone chimed from the kitchen. I closed the album gently and walked over. A small hope flickered. Maybe she remembered. Maybe she cared. But when I opened the screen, It was an old message thread with her that I had scrolled by mistake. I stared at the tiny row of gray bubbles. Dozens of messages from me, updates, check-ins, little stories she never responded to. Then the handful of replies from Corinne. Can you cover this bill? Do you have a minute? It's urgent. Can you send 200, Mom? I'm short again. That was her pattern. Every message she cared about had a number in it. I leaned on the counter, breathing slowly. I hadn't wanted to believe it, but the truth was almost tender in its cruelty. She ignored me unless she needed something. A notification popped up at the top of the screen, Corinne posting a new picture of a latte shaped like a heart. No caption, no acknowledgement of the day she had skipped. No call. Nothing. I set the phone down. The tulips on the table leaned slightly toward the light, like they knew where to turn even when things felt lopsided. I wished I had their instinct. I wished love didn't feel like something I had to earn from my own child. 1 week after my birthday, the day started like any other. I made tea, watered the tulips, answered 2 emails from the Library Foundation, and tried not to think about the silence from Corinne. By late afternoon, the quiet felt heavy enough to pick up. I sat on the couch, phone in my hand, and opened the one place I knew I should avoid. Social media. I told myself I was just checking the community page, just seeing if the art group had posted anything new. My thumb slid past photos of dogs, bowls of soup, a sunset over the Narrows Bridge. Then, Corinne's name flashed across the screen. The first picture hit me like cold water. A long table pushed together, covered in dishes and wine glasses. Balloons tied to the backs of chairs. A small cake with sparklers still smoking. Her friends leaned in, laughing. Arms around each other. Front and center was Corinne, holding a glass of red wine high in the air. Mouth open, mid-laugh. The caption read, "Birthday night for my favorite girl. Could not love this crew more. Self-care and celebration all in one." My thumb froze above the screen. Behind her, in the corner of the photo, I saw a wall I recognized. A painting I had walked past before. I blinked, zooming in. It was a restaurant in Old Town, 10 minutes from my condo. The phone rang in my hand and made me jump. I almost dropped it. Mom Daniel's voice came through. "You there?" "Yes," I said, my voice small. "I am here." "You sound off," he said quietly. "Are you feeling all right?" I hesitated. "Your sister posted something." "Oh," he said, his tone tightening. "What now?" "A party," I answered. "For a friend or for herself?" "I am not sure." I swallowed. "There are balloons. A cake." Daniel was silent for a moment. "When tonight?" I said, "Right now, I think." Another pause, where I stared at the tag under the picture. Restaurant name, Old Town, Tacoma. "Here," I said. "She is here. 10 minutes away." Daniel let out a slow breath. "She told you she was too busy." "Yes. She said they were skipping your birthday because things were tight and hectic." "Yes." There was no way to make that sound softer. "Mom," he said, voice dropping, "send me the picture. I do not want to drag you into this." "You are not dragging me," he said. "I am already in it. Just send it." I forwarded the post. The silence stretched while he opened it on his end. When he spoke again, something in his voice had changed. "She is really out there with all of them," he said. "They decorated. They bought wine. Someone paid for those plates. I see that." Soft rustling came through the phone, as if he was pacing. Then he whispered, more to himself than to me, "Why not you?" The words slid into the space between us. I felt them land. They hurt more because he did not say them with anger. He said them like a fact he did not know how to swallow. "I do not know," I said. My throat felt raw. Maybe she did not want an old woman at her table. Maybe she thinks I do not fit. That is not it, he muttered. She is not a teenager. Mom, she knows what this means. I could hear him breathing, trying to control himself. Have you talked to her since the text, he asked. No, I said. She sent nothing else. I did not either. I did not want to sound needy. You are not needy, he snapped. You are our mother. There is a difference. I closed my eyes. I do not want you fighting with her because of me. I am not fighting with her because of you, he said. I am angry because of what she is doing. That is not the same thing. On the screen, the photo refreshed. More comments appeared under Corinne's post. You all look amazing. Best crew. Nothing better than chosen family. I read that last line twice. She wrote, chosen family, I said softly. Daniel exhaled sharply. Of course she did. My thumb hovered over the call button next to Corinne's name. I imagined her phone lighting up on that table, her eyes rolling, her friends watching, her voice changing to that brittle tone she used when she wanted to appear strong. I did not press it. Instead, I put the phone on the coffee table and sat back. She is 10 minutes away, I said. She could have stopped by. She could have had coffee with me before going there. She could have done many things. Daniel did not answer for a moment. When he did, his voice was thick. She made a choice, he said. That is what I see in that picture. She chose them. She chose not you. I watched the screen dim, the image fading until only my reflection looked back at me. My daughter was close enough for me to see the restaurant's front door from the right corner of my balcony, if I leaned out far enough. And still, the only place I saw her was on a screen, smiling for everyone but me, the morning after seeing Corinne's party post. I kept my phone face down on the kitchen counter. I did not trust myself to look at it. Silence felt safer than whatever I might find buried under her newest set of smiling pictures. I washed a plate that was already clean. I folded a towel that was already smooth. I moved through the house like someone afraid to make noise, as if any sound might summon more hurt. Daniel called twice before I answered. Mom, he said, you do not have to pretend everything is fine. I am not pretending, I replied, forcing calm. I am pacing myself. He huffed softly. That is your way of saying you are hurting and trying not to show it. I pressed the phone between my shoulder and ear while straightening the magazines on the coffee table. Your sister has her own life. Having a life is not the problem, he said. Destroying yours along the way is... Daniel. No, Mom. I am serious. She keeps taking from you emotionally. You do not deserve that. My fingers tightened around the edge of a magazine. She is overwhelmed. She always has been. That is not overwhelmed. He said, that is unkind. There is a difference. I took a slow breath. Daniel waited, giving me space the way his father used to. He finally added, you need boundaries. Mom, I am 70 years old, I whispered. Is this really when I start learning those yes? He said firmly. Maybe this is exactly the time. After we hung up, I sat at the table holding my own hands, the way I used to when the kids were small and the days felt too loud. But now the house was too quiet. It was a different kind of heavy. Later that afternoon, I forced myself to walk to the community art center. I hadn't planned to talk to anyone. I only wanted to stand near living people instead of memories. But as soon as I stepped inside, I saw Alma by the supply shelf. She taught watercolor in the evenings and had a habit of noticing too much. When she looked at me, her smile faltered. You all right, Maribel? She asked. You look dimmer today. I almost said I was fine. Then I caught myself. Just a long week. She hesitated, shifting her paintbrush from one hand to the other. I don't want to meddle, but I saw something online last night. That word online hit me like a jolt. What did you see? I asked quietly. She sighed, lowering her voice. I follow Corinne, not closely. Just enough to keep up. She posted something earlier. A joke with her friends. It wasn't kind. My stomach tightened. About who Alma gave me a regretful look. About you. I held the back of a chair so tightly my knuckles went pale. What did she say? Alma hesitated again. It was a video. She said something like, my mother would lose her mind in a place like this. She thinks wine is fancy. Her friends laughed. She tagged the restaurant in the caption. I stared at the paint-splattered table beside us. My heart thudded once, hard. Like it was protesting being forced to hear that. Alma reached out gently. I am sorry. I shouldn't have told you. But I also did not want you walking around thinking she was treating you with kindness. I appreciate it. I managed. On my walk home, the city noise felt muffled. People moved around me. But it was like I was behind a pane of glass. Not crying, not angry. Just aware more than I had allowed myself to be in years. I had spent so long explaining away Corinne's behavior that the truth felt like stepping into cold water. Shocking, inevitable, clarifying. For the first time, I let myself feel it without cushioning the blow. My daughter wasn't just forgetting me. She was discarding me. I had not planned to leave the house that morning. I wanted a quiet day. Nothing sharp or heavy. Nothing that would remind me of the past week. But the kettle broke, the bottom cracked clean through, so I walked to the small cafe near the waterfront to buy a new one from the shop next door. I stepped inside the cafe first, thinking a warm drink might steady me. The air smelled faintly of cinnamon bread and coffee grounds. I joined the short line, rubbing my hands together for warmth. That was when I heard her voice, Corinne's voice. I froze where I stood, every muscle going rigid before I even turned. There she was, near the front windows, hair pinned neatly, fingernails painted a sharp red. She held her phone to her ear and laughed lightly. The way she laughed when she wanted people to think she was above everything. I took one quiet step back behind a display of mugs. If she saw me, she'd pretend surprise, pretend sweetness, pretend something she had long stopped meaning. I did not want the performance. I just wanted to breathe. Her voice was clear, too clear. No, I am not stopping by her place. She said, please, my mom would lose her mind in here. She does not fit in. She is too old for places like this. Each word landed like a tap on glass. Small, sharp, dangerous if it cracked. A woman sitting near her let out a soft laugh and murmured something I could not hear. Corinne answered quickly. I know. Right. She still thinks wine is fancy. Can you imagine bringing her to a place where people know things? She would panic. I gripped the edge of the shelf beside me. The room tilted slightly. My heart thudded in my throat, thick and clumsy. Corinne kept talking. And the whole birthday thing, God. She made it dramatic. I told her I was busy. She is used to being alone. My breath stopped. Used to being alone. She said it so casually, like describing the weather, like loneliness was something I enjoyed wearing, something I had chosen instead of something life had quietly forced on me. The barista called. Next in line, I did not move. I could not. My throat tightened until I felt my eyes burning. I pressed the back of my hand against my mouth, willing myself not to make a sound. Corinne shifted in her chair, tapping her nail against her iced glass. No, I don't feel bad. What am I supposed to do? Rearrange my whole week for her. She should be grateful I answer the phone at all. I closed my eyes. A tear slipped before I could stop it. Someone touched my elbow gently. I startled. Turning. The barista, a young woman with soft brown eyes, gave me a small, concerned look. "Ma'am, you can step up if you are ready." I swallowed hard. I need a moment." She nodded and quietly stepped back. Behind me, Corinne laughed again, bright, polished, unbothered. Seriously, she told whoever was on the other end. "My mom has always been dramatic. She just hides it well. Daniel probably told her something that made her worse. He spoils her. Spoils me." As if kindness were a weakness. I took a breath so shaky it barely counted. Corinne's voice carried across the cafe one last time. "Anyway, I will swing by Old Town later. We are all meeting for dinner again. Dinner, again, more celebrations, more joy, just not with me." I turned and walked out without ordering anything. The air outside was cold enough to sting, but it felt cleaner than the air I had just heard her poison with her words. I stood on the sidewalk, holding the railing, letting the world move around me. Cars passed. The wind rolled off the water. Somewhere far behind me, Corinne's laughter rose again, muffled by the glass. I wiped my cheeks with the sleeve of my coat and forced myself to breathe slowly. There was no misunderstanding, no half-heard sentence, no missing context. My daughter did not just forget me. She talked about me like a burden she wished she never had. I walked home with the slow, steady steps of someone trying to keep herself from breaking open in public, each foot reaching for enough ground to hold the pain without letting it spill. And as the distance grew between me and that cafe, one thought settled deeper and heavier inside me than all the rest. The day after I heard Corinne in that cafe, I did something I had been avoiding for years. I pulled the old metal box from the back of my bedroom closet and carried it to the kitchen table. Inside were folders, receipts, bank statements, and a neatly folded paper with Matthew's handwriting on it. His will, his careful, steady lines. I set that aside and spread the rest out in front of me. Transfers to Corinne, payments for emergencies, auto drafts tied to an account she used. 200 here, 300 there, 1,000 when her husband was between jobs, another 500 when the car suddenly needed repairs. The dates blurred, but the pattern was clear. Every time she said, "Mom, I really need this." I had opened my hand, every time I needed something time, a visit. A simple call, she had closed hers. The phone rang. Daniel again. I let it ring once, then answered. "Hi," I said. "Hey, Mom." His voice was careful, like he was testing the air before stepping into it. "I have been thinking about what you told me, about the cafe." "I did not want to upset you," I replied. "You did not upset me," he said. "She did." I looked down at a statement showing 3 automatic payments to a card Corinne used. "Daniel, can I ask you something?" "Anything." I traced a finger down the page. "Has your sister ever spoken about me to you in a way she thought I would not hear?" He was quiet for a few seconds, and those seconds told me the answer before his words did. "She has," he said finally. "What did she say?" He exhaled. "She told some people that you are clingy, that you overreact, that you are dramatic about small things." The words floated, heavy and sharp. "Clingy." I repeated. "She said you get too emotional if she does not call, that you make her feel guilty." I argued with her, but she laughed it off. "She thinks you will always forgive her." "Mom." "She thinks you will always be there, no matter how she acts." I looked at the rows of numbers in front of me. Years of proof that she was right about that part. Daniel added, "You are not clingy. You are lonely because people who should have been there walked away." I swallowed against the ache in my throat. "I have helped her a lot. Have I not?" "Yes," he said, "more than I think she even remembers or appreciates." I picked up one statement and read the line aloud. "Automatic transfer to Corinne Rowan, monthly." I set it down. She does not even have to ask anymore. The money just moves. And she expects it. Daniel said. Yes, I answered. She expects it. He hesitated, then spoke more firmly. You can stop. Mom. The word sat between us like a door that had never been opened. Stop, I repeated. You can stop paying, he said. You can stop fixing things for her. You can stop being the one who makes it easy for her to forget you. You are allowed to do that. I looked again at Matthew's name on the folded will, at the steady shape of his letters. He had trusted me to take care of myself after he died. I had broken that promise. I think I am tired, Daniel, I said quietly. Not of being a mother, of being treated like a lifeline no one respects. I know, he replied. If you decide to change things, I will stand next to you. We hung up, and the silence that followed felt different than the silence of the week before. This one had edges. This one had purpose. I gathered the statements into a neat stack and placed them back in the box. But I kept one page out, the one with the list of automatic payments tied to Corinne's life. I placed it beside my laptop, opened my online banking, and stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I began clicking the buttons that would end each transfer, one by one, until the list that had once tied me to her needs was empty. The night I decided to stop, the house felt strangely steady. No trembling hands, no racing heart, just a quiet resolve I had never felt before. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open and the stack of statements beside me, the same stack that had once made me feel responsible and needed. Tonight, they felt like chains I was finally unlocking. I opened the first account, hovered over the button for a moment, then clicked Cancel Transfer. A small confirmation window appeared. Are you sure? Yes, I whispered, pressing the confirmation. Another account, another transfer, another quiet yes. With each click, something inside me loosened, something that had been tight for years. The weight I had been carrying began to shift, like someone finally taking a heavy bag from my arms. Phone bill canceled, credit card draft canceled, emergency fund transfer canceled, shared savings access removed. I closed my eyes for a moment. The silence in the room wasn't empty. It was full of a kind of strength I had never allowed myself. I didn't tell Daniel, I didn't tell Alma, and most importantly, I didn't tell Corinne. She would find out on her own. 2 days later, she did. It was late afternoon when my phone buzzed repeatedly on the counter. I let the first call ring out, the second, the third. By the fourth, I sighed and answered. Mom, Corinne snapped, her voice sharp enough to slice through the air. Why is my card not working? I steadied myself. I am not sure what you mean. It declined, she hissed. At the store, for groceries, in front of people. Did you check the balance? I asked quietly. I do not need to check the balance. She shot back. You handle the auto transfers. They go through every month. Not anymore. Silence. A thick, stunned kind of silence. What she finally choked out. I canceled them. I said, all of them. Her breath hitched, and I could almost hear her scrambling for the right tone. Anger, disbelief, manipulation, something she could use. You, what? Without warning, I did not think a warning was necessary. I replied, they were gifts. Corinne, not obligations. Her voice rose instantly. Are you kidding me, Mom? I counted on those. You know I counted on those. I know, I said. That is why I stopped. Another silence. This one colder. So you are punishing me, she said, because I missed one stupid birthday. It was not just that. You are unbelievable. She snapped. Do you know how humiliating this was? The cashier looked at me like I was trying to steal something. I closed my eyes. I am sorry that happened. No, she snapped. You are not. You did this. She was right. I had done this, and for the first time, I did not feel guilty for choosing myself. Corinne, I said quietly, you will need to manage your own finances from now on. This is insane. Her voice cracked. I cannot believe you would do this to me. I believe I had to. I answered. She let out a bitter laugh. We'll talk later. I can't. I just can't right now. The call cut off abruptly. I set the phone down and folded my hands together, breathing in slowly. I didn't tremble. I didn't panic. I didn't regret it. I sat in the stillness of my own decision and let it settle fully inside me. The line had finally been drawn by 9 in the morning. The pounding started hard, fast, furious. My front door shook in its frame as if someone were trying to kick it in. I stepped into the hallway and froze. I knew that voice before I heard the name behind it. Mom, open this door. Corinne's fists hit the wood again. Do not play dumb with me. Open it. I took one breath, steady and slow, then unlocked the deadbolt but kept the chain in place. I cracked the door open 2 inches. Corinne's face filled the gap red. Furious. Hair sticking out as if she'd run here. Her voice blasted through the small opening. How could you do this to me? I held the edge of the door with both hands. Corinne, lower your voice. No. You do not get to tell me that. She jabbed a finger toward my face. I was humiliated yesterday. Humiliated, and that is on you. Across the walkway, I saw Mrs. Harrigan's curtain twitch. Another neighbor stepped out onto his porch pretending to sweep. Eyes locked on us. Corinne didn't care. She never had. You cut every single account without telling me. She screamed. My card declined twice. Twice. Mom, I kept my voice calm. I told you on the phone I ended the transfers. You blindsided me. She spat. You made me look irresponsible. You were irresponsible, I said gently. She let out a sharp, humorless laugh. Wow. So that is what we are doing now. I swallowed, but didn't retreat. You depended on money that I could not keep giving. You embarrassed me with Daniel, she snapped suddenly, as if the words burst out without warning. What you told him. She accused. You told him things to make him judge me. He called me last night. He yelled at me. Do you understand how that feels? You did that. I said, not me. Her face twisted. You always play the victim. Poor old Mom. So fragile. So mistreated. Do you love when he defends you? Does it make you feel powerful? I raised my chin slightly. I did not tell him anything except the truth. She stepped closer, trying to shove the door wider. But the chain stopped her. You want pity. That is all you ever want. I felt the words land, but for the first time, they didn't pierce. They simply fell. I want respect. I said, the same respect I gave you for years. Corinne scoffed so loudly, the neighbor across the way flinched. Respect. You cannot even handle a missed birthday without making it a tragedy. The strength in me rose, slow but undeniable. You told people I was clingy. I said, you mocked me online. You laughed about being too busy. You celebrated near my home without saying a word. Her eyes flicked away for half a second, guilt or fear or both. I pressed my palm against the door, steadying it. And now you're terrified I might finally tell the whole truth. Corinne's breath caught. For once. She had nothing to say. Corinne's breath rasped through the narrow gap in the door. For a moment, she looked stunned. Like my words had hit harder than the chain between us. But then her face hardened again. You're twisting everything, she snapped. You always do this. You make me out to be the villain so you can play the wounded mother. I kept my tone steady. You skipped my birthday. You lied about being busy. Then you threw a party 10 minutes from my home. It was not a big deal, she shot back. It was just something I needed. You needed wine and balloons with your friends, I said, but you did not need your mother. Corinne flinched, but her voice only grew sharper. You don't understand anything I deal with. If you did, you wouldn't guilt-trip me every time I cannot give you attention. I have a life, Mom. I never asked for attention, I replied. I asked for respect. Oh, stop! She rolled her eyes so dramatically, even the neighbor across the courtyard looked away. You make everything so heavy. One missed birthday and you're acting like I abandoned you. I felt a small, unexpected calm settle over me. It was not one birthday. It was years of dismissals. Years of me being good enough when you needed money, but never good enough when you needed joy. That is not fair, she said quickly. It is the truth. Corinne let out a laugh that sounded more like a bark. You love throwing that word around. Truth. 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 You think you're the only one who has it. I think you hide from it. I answered. Her nostrils flared. And what truth do you think I'm hiding that you treat me like obligation? I said. Not family. Corinne opened her mouth, ready to spit back something sharp. When footsteps came up the walkway, I looked past her. Daniel? He approached without hesitation, jaw tight, eyes focused. What's going on? Corinne turned, furious. Oh, great. Perfect timing. Did you come to take her side again? Daniel didn't even look at her at first. He looked at me. Are you all right? Mom. I nodded once. Only then did he face Corinne. You need to stop yelling at her. Excuse me. Corinne stepped toward him. This is between me and her. No, Daniel said. It stopped being just between you and her when you started lying about her, when you mocked her online, when you treated her birthday like a chore. Corinne's face twisted. Why are you both doing this to me? We're not doing anything to you, Daniel said. We're finally telling the truth. I watched her throat tighten, watched her try to gather her usual fire, her usual control, but it wasn't landing. Not this time, not with both of us standing there. For the first time, she looked smaller than her voice, and I felt something shift, something deep and final, like the balance in the room had finally snapped free from her hands. 500 words. Daniel's presence at my side did something I had never felt in front of Corinne before. It made me brave. Corinne pointed at him like she could push him out of the moment. You do not know everything. Daniel, you never do. You were always the favorite, so of course she's playing you. His jaw tightened. This is not about favorites. This is about how you treat her. She scoffed. You think she is perfect. You think she never messed up. She guilted us our entire childhood. She cried over everything. I felt the words land and slide off. They did not stick the way they used to. I cried. I said quietly, because I was alone even when you were both in the house. Corinne snapped her head back toward me. Here we go. The speech. No, I said. Not a speech. Just the truth. I swallowed for 40 years. Daniel stayed silent. Eyes on me, letting me speak. I tightened my grip on the edge of the door. When you were 8, you begged for dance lessons. We did not have the money. I sold your father's record collection to pay for the first term. He never said a word because he loved seeing you happy. You quit after 2 months. Her mouth opened, then closed. When you were 13, I went on. You wanted a new jacket like the other girls. I took on extra shifts at the archive. My knees hurt so badly, I could barely stand by the time I came home. But I did it anyway. You threw the jacket on the floor because the color was wrong. That was years ago. She muttered. They stack, I said. They do not disappear. I saw something flicker in her eyes. The first crack in her practiced indifference. When your husband lost his job, I continued. I paid your rent for 6 months. I told you it was temporary. 10 years later, I was still covering bills, phone plans, insurance. memberships. Every time you said, Mom, it is urgent, I moved the money before you finished the sentence. Corinne's voice grew tight. You said you did not mind. I did not mind helping. I said, I minded being invisible while I did it. Daniel shifted closer to me. She is right. Corinne glared at him. Stay out of it. He didn't flinch. No. I took a breath that felt like it came from somewhere far deeper than my lungs. Do you remember the night your father died? Corinne, she swallowed. Of course I do. You called me from your car. You said, I cannot come back to the hospital. It is too hard to see him like that. You handle it. So I handled it. I signed the papers. I held his hand while he took his last breath. I walked to the parking lot alone. You never asked how that felt. Her lip trembled, just once. For 40 years, I said, I have been shrinking myself so you would not feel guilty. I took the blame. I took the excuses. I took the late-night calls and the early morning transfers. I let you turn me into a background character in your own story. Tears gathered along the rim of her lashes. Anger and panic mixing together. I never asked you to do all of that. Yes, I replied softly. You did. Not with words, with expectation. She shook her head, arms wrapping around herself. You are twisting everything. No, I said. I am untwisting it. She stared at me. Chest rising and falling too fast. So what? Mom. You are done with me now. You got Daniel on your side. You cut the money, bah? And now you get to act like you are above all of this. I studied her face, the girl she had been, the woman she had become, the stranger who stood at my door. Then I felt the line inside me harden into something permanent. You skipped my birthday, I said, my voice low and even. I am skipping the rest of your chaos. The words hung there between us. Solid and final, for once. Corinne had nothing ready to throw back. She stood on my doorstep, shaking, staring at me like she was seeing someone she did not know. I held her gaze and did not look away. Corinne's breath came out in sharp bursts, her eyes wide, darting between me and Daniel like she was searching for an exit that didn't exist. For a moment, I thought she might soften, might let the truth sink into her bones. But then her face twisted again. You're unbelievable, she hissed. Both of you. Acting like I'm some kind of monster. Daniel didn't move. No one said that. You didn't have to. She snapped. I get it. Mom finally grew a spine, and now everyone applauds. I held the door steady. Corinne, you need to go home. She stared at me, stunned. You're choosing him over me. I am choosing myself, I said. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Then, with a sudden surge of rage, she slammed her palm against the doorframe. This isn't over, she said, voice shaking. You can't treat me like this. You can't just cut me off and pretend you're the victim. I didn't answer. I simply pushed the door until only a sliver of light remained between us. Her final words slipped through the crack like smoke. You'll regret this. Then her footsteps pounded down the walkway, heels striking the cement in uneven beats until the sound disappeared. I closed the door fully and pressed my back against it. The quiet that followed felt too big for the room. I slid down slowly to the floor, my breath coming in small, broken pulls I could no longer control. Daniel knelt beside me. Mom, I'm all right, I whispered, though tears were already escaping down my cheeks. I just needed to do that. He rested a hand on my shoulder, grounding me. You did the right thing. I nodded, wiping my face with the sleeve of my sweater. It hurts, I know, he said gently, but it's clean hurt, not the kind that keeps breaking you. He stayed with me until my breathing steadied. When he finally stood, he helped me up, hugged me tight, and promised to come back that evening. After he left, The condo felt quiet in a way that didn't choke me. I walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and sat at the table, letting the stillness settle into my bones. A soft rustle at the front door made me look up. I walked over and found a small note slipped underneath. I opened it carefully. "You were brave today. If you ever need anything, knock. Margaret. Apt. 2B." I pressed the paper to my chest. A stranger's kindness. Simple, undeserved, and suddenly everything. I walked back inside, closed the door fully, not against Corinne, but for myself. The latch clicked softly, almost like a breath. For the first time in my life, the sound did not mean someone was being shut out. It meant I was finally letting myself in. The condo felt different in the days after Corinne's outburst. The walls didn't hold their breath anymore. The rooms didn't wait for the next apology I would never receive. The silence was still there, but it had changed shape, no longer sharp, no longer heavy. It felt open. I woke early the next morning and stood by the window, watching the Tacoma waterfront stretch in front of me. The sky was pale blue, the kind that looked like it had been washed gently overnight. I put on my coat, tied my scarf, and walked down toward the trail that curved along Ruston Way. For the first time in a long while, I noticed things: laughter from joggers, the chatter of seagulls, the low hum of early boats. My shoulders loosened without me realizing it. At the Community Art Center, Alma greeted me with a long, warm hug. "You look lighter," she said softly. "I feel lighter," I answered. We spent the morning painting side by side. I wasn't great at it, my lines wobbled. My colors bled, but Alma smiled at everything I made like she saw something worth keeping. "You're getting better," she said. "I'm getting braver," I corrected. She laughed and nodded. "That's the real art." Later that week, Daniel knocked on my door with 2 bags of groceries and a new coat he insisted I try. "You're spoiling me," I told him. "I'm making up for lost time," he said, kissing my forehead before walking in to put things away. We cooked together, a thing we hadn't done since he was a teenager. He moved around my kitchen like he belonged there, chatting about work and really asking how I'd been sleeping, eating, feeling. I didn't realize how much I had missed being asked those things. "Mom," he said as we cleaned up, "I am proud of you." I held the dish towel for a long moment before saying quietly, "I'm proud of me too." But peace has a way of being interrupted. That evening, my phone buzzed on the couch. A notification from social media. I almost ignored it but curiosity got the better of me. Corinne had posted a vague, dramatic status. "Some people love playing the victim. Not everything is my fault." Hundreds of likes. Dozens of comments. Sympathy pouring toward her without anyone knowing the truth. I felt my face warm, not with shame, but with a strange, steady disappointment. I wasn't surprised. Not anymore. I closed the app, set the phone down, and lit a small candle on the coffee table. Daniel sat beside me a minute later, handing me a blanket. "You okay?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "I really am." I leaned back into the couch, the room warm, the world quiet, and let the peace settle around me, not perfect, not complete, but mine. The message arrived on a Wednesday morning, long before the sun had fully pushed its way over the waterfront. I was stirring honey into my tea when the phone buzzed on the counter. The sound was sharp enough to cut through the quiet, the kind that made my stomach knot before I even turned the screen over. Corinne's name glowed across the top. For a moment, I let my hand hover above the phone. I already knew what waited inside a storm disguised as softness. Corinne had always known how to braid apology and accusation together until they felt like the same thing. Still, I tapped to open it. The message was long enough that the screen couldn't hold it all at once. "Mom, I've been thinking. I didn't mean for things to get so out of control. You overreacted. but I understand you were emotional. I'm sorry if you felt hurt. I didn't skip your birthday to be cruel. I was overwhelmed. You know I get overwhelmed. I shouldn't have yelled the other day. But you need to see how hard my life is too. We should fix this. Families don't abandon each other. Please turn the transfers back on so we can start fresh. I need stability right now, and you know you're the one who keeps us stable. I love you. But you made things harder than they needed to be. Let's just go back to how things were. I read each line slowly, letting every curve of her sentences show itself for what it was. Not accountability, not repair, not love. It was pressure, wrapped tightly in sentiment. A hand reaching out not to hold mine, but to pull me back into the role she expected me to play. Daniel knocked lightly on the door a few minutes later, the weekly habit he never missed. I opened it and stepped aside for him. You look like you just read something, he said gently. I did. I handed him my phone. He scanned the message, his brow tightening with each sentence. She still thinks this is about money, he muttered. Or control, or something that isn't truth. I poured him tea and sat across from him. She thinks I will fold. He nodded, because you always did. Until now. He reached across the table and placed his hand over mine. So what will you do? I picked up the phone again. The message still sat open, blinking softly like it was waiting for me to apologize for reading it. For a moment, all the old instincts rose up, the urge to soothe, to fix, to bend before something snapped. 40 years of muscle memory in one small flutter of hesitation. Then I exhaled. No reply. I said. Daniel nodded once. Good. I hovered over the delete button. My thumb trembled not from fear, but from something almost unfamiliar. Strength. I pressed delete. The phone screen cleared, the conversation thread sliding away like it had never existed. There was no jolt, no dramatic swell of emotion, just a quiet release, like setting down a heavy bag I had been carrying for too long. Daniel smiled at me. A small, proud thing. How do you feel? I leaned back in my chair. The window beside me showed a slice of Tacoma sky, washed clean after a morning drizzle. My chest felt open, my breath steady. I said, like the day finally belongs to me. He raised his mug. To new beginnings. I clinked mine gently against his. Outside, the city kept moving. Inside, something in me settled into place, firm, calm, and unshakable. I chose peace, not her version, mine. The letter sat on my dining table for an entire day before I finally slipped it into the envelope. Thick paper, clear language. No emotion in the ink, just truth, signed in a steady hand. By the time I walked it to the mailbox, the air along Ruston Way was cool, sharp enough to keep me focused. I slid the envelope inside, listened to it drop, and whispered, there, done. It was not anger that pushed it from my fingers. It was something colder, something calmer. 2 mornings later, my phone rang. Corinne. I let it buzz until it fell silent. Then it buzzed again. And again. On the 4th try, I answered. Her voice came out tight. Mom. What is this? What did you send me? A notice, I said. A formal one. Her breath hitched. It says I'm removed from all shared accounts. That I no longer have emergency access. That you took me off every medical form. That is correct. You can't do that. Her voice cracked upward. I'm your daughter. And yet, I said softly, you have treated me like a stranger. She scoffed. And the inheritance thing. Tell me you did not actually do that. I did, I replied. Your father's workshop, the savings account, the old annuity. Everything is transferred to the Tacoma Senior Arts Scholarship. You gave it to strangers. No, I said, to students, to people who create, To people who show up. She sucked in a sharp breath. You're punishing me. No, I said. I'm releasing myself. There was a long, trembling silence on the other end. Then, you are choosing them over your own family. I am choosing peace. I answered. You skipped my birthday. Corinne, now I am skipping your chaos for the rest of my life. Something inside her broke. Then I heard it in the small gasp she couldn't hide. But I didn't fill the silence for her. I didn't soothe her this time. I don't understand you, she whispered. You don't have to, I said. I ended the call. A few minutes later, Daniel arrived. He didn't ask what happened. He simply sat beside me and held my hand until my breathing evened out. You did what you needed to do, he said. I finally did, I answered. We walked down to the waterfront together. The air smelled of salt and cedar. The waves rolled against the rocks in slow, steady beats like a pulse I could finally match. I told Daniel about my last step, the one detail I had not shared yet. I donated your father's workshop, I said quietly. The whole space, tools included, to the Seniors Art Collective. Daniel nodded slowly. He would have liked that. He would. I said, he always believed creation should outlive the people who make it. We stood there for a long time, watching the water fold into itself over and over, as if even the bay knew something had been released. When Daniel finally hugged me goodbye, I stayed a while longer, letting the wind move through me instead of around me. Then I walked home lighter, steadier, no longer carrying a life that had been slipping out of my hands for decades. Some endings punish. Mine rebuilt me. If you felt this story, let me know, comment, or subscribe so I can share the next chapter of my journey with you.